Today is the day I get to show you my eyeshadow collection. The best, the worst, and everything that's in between. Let's go ahead and get started. Hi, welcome back. If this is your first time here, my name is Heather Eaglin. I love all things makeup, especially colorful makeup and indie brands, which you will definitely see here today as I show you all of my palettes in my collection, which happen to be a ton of indie brands. I'm going to start with these smaller palettes so I can get them kind of out of the way, try to get me some room to move here. These two top ones are the NATASHA DENONA minis. This one is the Cupid. It's a very pretty neutral color story. I got this in a BoxyCharm and I haven't used it yet, but I am excited to use it. This is the Jubilee NATASHA DENONA mini palette. This came from my aunt. She gave it to me and she got it in an Ipsy box. And I'm excited to use this one too. I really love this dark blue shade. And I do have a few other NATASHA DENONA palettes, and I do love the formulas. Next is my ODENS eye palettes. These two came in the ODENS eye mystery box earlier this year. And this is the first one. And here is the beautiful color story. This is an all shimmer palette. And I have played with this and I've really enjoyed creating looks with it. It's a beautiful palette. This is the other one. I have a look on my channel using this one. I really loved the color story of this one and I really enjoyed using these two shimmers. You can like mix them together or you can use them separately. These are the newest collab palettes from ODENS eye. This is the Makeup Just for Fun collab. It's the Flora Story palette. These are so beautiful. I love the color story that she picked. It's very fun, very spring. And the packaging is beautiful as well. This is ODENS eye collab with Betty Jean. She has a channel called Betty Bean, and this is her Planet Spirit palette. And I really love the color story that she picked for this one. It's very bright and colorful, and the shimmers are very fun as well. And last out of that collection, this one is from Lauren May Beauty. This is the Sea Talk palette, and I love this color story. But out of the three, this is my least favorite color story, but that doesn't mean anything because I absolutely love all three of these. The blue quad, actually these 6 shades right here are my favorite. I had a lot of fun creating looks with these, and I'm pretty sure I do have a few on my channel. If I do, I will try to remember to link them up in the card. Next, we have the Soul Mane 2. This is kind of like a rainbow palette, but it's so much more than that. This shade right here is like Kraft macaroni and cheese. It's such a unique shade. I don't have it in any other palette in my collection, and I love this. I love this palette. The embossings on the pans are really pretty as well. These last two are no longer available. They were also collab palettes. This is the Annette's Makeup Corner, the Giant Wolves palette. I love this so much, and the color story is so much more than actually meets the eye. And this shimmer, it's like a duochrome. It's a blue to pink. It's just so beautiful, and I've had so much fun creating looks with this one. This is my favorite ODENS eye palette. This is the Angelica Nikavist Hella palette, and I think she did a wonderful job. The packaging on this is really beautiful, but this color story is so unexpected to put pinks with greens, but they really go so well together, and I really love the shimmers in this as well. This matte yellow, I've used this palette for so many different looks just to get a matte inner corner highlight, and this one just looks beautiful on the inner corner. Okay, next we will do these few Glam Light palettes. This is the Glam Light Glam Donut Palette. It's like squishy. It's fun. And this is a pretty color story. I've used it a couple of times and I enjoyed the looks that I got with it. I like the palette. The quality is the same good Glam Light formula, but the color story is not my absolute favorite. And then we have these 3 Hershey Kiss palettes. I think there's 4 in this collection, but I only have 3 of them. And these are basically your typical monochromatic palettes. This is the Cookies and Cream, and it has a blue color story, which is one of my favorite shades of eyeshadow to wear. And I still haven't used these yet. Hopefully I will soon, but if I do use them, I probably will end up mixing them all together. This is the Lava Cake, and it's a pink color story. These really deep shades are really pretty. And then we have the Almonds palette. This is a brown, a warm tone brown and gold. And for a neutral palette, I think this one is really pretty. Next, we'll move on to these. Okay, this is Sula Look is the name of the brand. I bought this solely because it is Dirty Dancing, and the fact that it's the lift scene in Dirty Dancing really made me want to buy it. I love the color story of this. I will say the mattes are not that good, but I don't really care. I mostly wanted it for the packaging because when I was younger, my cousins and I would always practice doing the lift, and I was always Patrick Swayze because I was the oldest and the biggest. But when I seen this, it made me think of them, and I had to buy it. Same with this one. This is the same brand. This is the Charmed palette. The quality on it sucks, but if you know anything about me, Charmed is one of my favorite TV shows. I've literally watched it from beginning to end probably like 50 times. I freaking love that show, and when I seen this, I just had to have it. I just wish a better brand would have done this collaboration. To be honest, it'd be nice to love the palette too. Next, we have some ColourPop, and these 2 palettes are the first 2 palettes that I ever purchased outside of the drugstore section. This is the Bretman and ColourPop palette. I bought these after I started watching YouTube, like way early when I started watching, which I didn't start watching beauty YouTube until 2015 or 2016, somewhere around that time. And I was watching Angelica Nikovist, and I seen how much she really loved blue eyeshadow, and I'd never tried it because I was scared of it. And I bought this palette just to start trying blue looks, and crazy, now that's one of my favorite shades to wear. This is the Sweet Talk palette by ColourPop. I loved this. You can tell it's kind of gross. I don't use it much anymore. It's been probably over a year since I've used it, but because it's the first palette that I bought online, I just can't get rid of it. And it started my love for makeup, so I'll probably never get rid of that. Here we have a Tarte Cosmetics. I got this in the mail last year in my BoxyCharm, and I love this palette. This is a very neutral palette, but I've gotten a lot of use out of this. This is one of my favorite palettes to use for those quick one and done looks, and I've really enjoyed it and highly recommend it. This is the Sunrise. I don't know if I said that. Back to ColourPop. These 4 I got in a collection, and I also had a green one with it, and I gave that one to my mom because she loved it. But I've gotten a lot of use out of these. I bought these the winter of 2020, and the blue one and orange ones are my favorite. This is the blue one. The color story is just so beautiful. I love these bright blues, and Like I said, I've gotten a lot of love and use out of them. And the red one's my least favorite, but I don't have a lot of reds in my collection. It's a very pretty palette. I think these are still available. The first one is Blue Moon. This one's Main Squeeze. And this is It's My Pleasure. A lot of the writing has come off on them. This one's really pretty too. And then the yellow. The yellow is fun. I love the yellow one. Some of them have a pressed glitter in them, which I don't like, but for the price, it's still very worth it. And this is Orange You Glad. This is my second favorite. Orange eyeshadow is also a favorite color for me to wear. And then this is the Wine and Only. I love this palette. It's so much more than what you see. And I love mixing it with this palette. This is the In the Limelight. I think this one is gone off the site, and I don't know why, because it's so beautiful. But these two palettes in combination are absolutely beautiful together. That wine color mixed with that lime green in the center is a really fun eye look. Now we have the Star Wars Mandalorian. I have two Star Wars palettes. I also have the Mandalorian. What is this one? Yeah. This is the Child palette. My bad. Out of these two, I much prefer this one over this one because I hate gray toned eyeshadows, but I bought them because I was trying to get the full Star Wars collection, but I don't know, I'm just not into the color stories of them, so I did stop purchasing them. I do like this yellow in the top. And then we have Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas. This is also a ColourPop palette. I like this color story a lot, especially the more colorful shades. I think it's beautiful. And then we have the Golden State Warriors palette. I love this color story. I love blue and yellow together, and this shade is beautiful. And here we have the Miami Heat. This is a really pretty warm tone neutral palette. ColourPop's pricing too, you just can't beat it. It's cheaper than the drugstore, but just their quality is really good. This is the Wild Python by Huda Beauty. I've gotten a lot of use out of this palette too. I've loved a few of these palettes, but I do know that they're not all created equal. Some of them are not as good as others. And you could see I've really used that shade. Also, a big chunk of these are still available. And there's no way I'm going to be able to link all of these in the description box. So instead of linking them, if you have any questions about any of them, just let me know and I will send you a link in the comment section. Now to the stack of Glamlight. Okay, I have the first Scooby-Doo collection here, and I just want to start this off by saying I typically really love Glamlight. Until I found Unearthly Cosmetics, Glamlight was my absolute favorite brand, and they still are one of my favorite brands. But I do not like these palettes. I love the color stories of them, and I really honestly thought that I would really love them. This is the Creeps and Crawls, and then we have the Rutro Raggy. The color stories are so pretty, but for some reason, no matter what I do, the matte shades in these palettes look muddy on me. I've even tried to use these in combination with some of my favorite pastel palettes, which are from Glamlight, and they just don't look good on me. So I need to try them and use like different techniques, but I haven't done that yet because both times I've tried to use them, I ended up hating the look and starting over. Anyways, this is the Michaela Part 2. This is the smaller palette. I have the big one also. Out of the two, the big one is my favorite. This one's pretty, but I don't think it's like anything special. But it's a great formula, and if you love the color story of these, you will love these palettes. Next, we will do the wine collection, I believe is what it was called. These are sold separately on the site. It's 4 palettes. These are 4 of my most used palettes in my collection. These are Glam Light, and I freaking love these. This green one is so beautiful, and even though it's like a mostly green palette, you do have some blue shades over here and some copper and like, you know, dirty penny looking shades. You can get a lot of different variations of looks out of this palette. There's so much more to it than meets the eye, and these are some of my favorite Glam Light palettes. These are some of my most used neutral palettes in my collection, and I freaking love this palette so much. The wine one is just as good. This color story is absolutely beautiful. This is one of my favorite shades. And then the Margarita. This is one of my least favorites out of the palette, only because it doesn't have deepening up shades. It's not a favorite as a standalone palette, but mixed with the other ones, I love it just as much. The formula is great. Love that spicy jalapeno shade. This is another one of my favorite Glam Light palettes. This is the Glam Light Frosted Flakes. It has 2 of my most favorite shades to wear, which are orange and blue. This bottom row is like, oh my god, they're so good. These are so pigmented. As you can see, I hit pan on a shade down there. I love them. All of these are still available, as well as the Icy palette. This is the Blue Raspberry palette. There's a red one also, but I've only got the blue one. I did buy this at TJ Maxx, and the blue color story on this is beautiful. The blue monochromatic palettes get me every time. This was a gift from a friend of mine. She bought it for me for my birthday last year, and honestly, there couldn't be a better color story for me because I love warm tones. Oranges and yellows are some of my favorite eyeshadows to wear as well, and the formula on this is pretty good. This is from Chic Glam, and it's the Leo palette. This is the Beetlejuice and Makeup Revolution. It's a pretty color story. I don't like the pans. I feel like there's a lot of wasted space in this palette, but I bought it because it's Beetlejuice. Come on. This is the Heather Austin Adept palette. I recently had this in my multi-chrome video, and I will link that up in the cards. The shades in this are absolutely stunning. The shimmers, I can't even begin to describe. I do have them all swatched in that video though. This I got in my last BoxyCharm box. This is the Violet Voss, what is it? Sakura Blossom. I love saying the name of that. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but that's the way I want to say it, and it's a very beautiful palette. I have not used this one yet, but I'm definitely going to because I love the pinks in there. Here is the Celestial Garden Bella Beauty Bar by M. Jones 5018. She's an Instagram account, and I love her uploads over there. If I can remember, I will link her in the description box. I have not used the matte shades in this palette, but I have used the shimmers recently, and I love them. And I also love these water activated liners at the bottom. You can mix them, or you can just, you know, use it for what it is, and then you can just wipe it off and it's like brand new, which is really cool. They are the only water activated liners in my collection. This is Huda Beauty Mercury Retrograde. I got this in a collection from BoxyCharm last year, and I've tried to use it once and I wasn't loving it, but I'm eager to try it again. A lot of people love Huda Beauty. This is the ColourPop Hocus Pocus 2. And while we're at it, this is a ColourPop Hocus Pocus one. I'll show you this one first. Out of the two, the second one is definitely my favorite. This one's pretty, but it's nothing like spectacular, to be honest. And here's Hocus Pocus 2. This one is beautiful. I love this color story. It is literally the perfect fall color story. I think they really killed it with this one. This is a Lime Crying Venus 2. I got this in a BoxyCharm or a Ipsy years ago. You don't really hear much about Lime Crime anymore, but this was one of those quick look palettes in my collection, and I have gotten a lot of use out of this one too. It's still one that I reach for when I'm trying to do something fast. These are Juvia's Place. This is my Allure 1 and Allure 2. This one, I think it might be my favorite. I love the turquoise shades in these, but these grungy mustard tones are absolutely beautiful. And we have another monochromatic palette, and it's blue. Absolutely stunning. I have so many of these though, but I still keep buying them. I can't help myself. Here we have my multi-chromes, my singles. These are all Cliona except for this one in the corner, which is Lethal. And this is also in that video that I was talking about. This is a ColourPop buy your own palette or build your own palette. And I got this sold in a bundle, and I love these to use when I'm doing other looks with other palettes, but I'm missing a shade. And it's a fun like palette to pull in with other things. I don't use it as a standalone. And the same goes with this one. This one's still for sale. There's also a matte version where it's all mattes. And that's probably what I would recommend because the shimmers in this aren't that great. And it does have 4 pressed glitters, which I don't really like. But the mattes in this palette are good. This is the Violet Voss Care Bears palette. I bought this because my girlfriend loves Care Bears and she's seen it and she actually bought it, but the palette itself is not good. The shadows are like almost too pigmented. They don't pack on. They don't layer well. They're very patchy. I just don't recommend that at all. In here we have the One Size by Patrick Starr. This is the Visionary palette. I don't like this. I got it in a BoxyCharm and it's so like gray tone, cool toned. It's just not my vibe, but it's the only Patrick Starr palette I have. And if I ever want to do like a full face, I want to have a palette, so I've kept it. This is the other Glam Light palette to that Michaela Part 2 collection. This one, as I said, is my favorite one out of those. And as you probably know, these 2 bottom rows are my favorite, but the shimmers in this are really, really good as well. Here we have the Dragon Fruit palette. This is a collaboration between Cliona Cosmetics and Emily Violet Marie. The color story of this palette is so beautiful. I love the shimmers in this. And actually my first YouTube video I ever uploaded, please don't watch it, it makes me cringe, is using this palette. I've really gotten a lot of use out of it, but the packaging sucks. This broke as soon as I got it, and it's taped together now. Okay, we have a few more stacks. I think my ColourPop and my Glam Light are my biggest collections that I own. Here we have 2 Kaleidos palettes. This is my Escape Pod palette, and it's so beautiful. It has such a pretty color story. The packaging on it is so beautiful. It kind of feels like a jewelry box, but I really enjoy this palette, and it's still available. This is an Angelica Nyquist collaboration. This is the Club Nebula. The letters on mine are almost worn off. I've gotten so much use out of this palette. You could see I've hit pan on 5 shades. And I've almost hit pan on a few more. Every single shade has a huge dip in it. I've gotten so much use out of this, and I've absolutely loved this palette. And it was my first Kaleidos palette. Here we have the Nomad Royal Europe. The packaging on this is beautiful. It's like cut out. It's hard, like it's kind of hard to explain because it doesn't really pick up on camera the way that it looks and feels. It's just like a bunch of layers glued together, and it's really, really cool. This is a beautiful jewel tone palette, and these at the bottom are multi-chromes. And I will try to get their shifts. It's absolutely beautiful, and I had a lot of fun creating looks with this one as well. These two are NATASHA DENONA. This is the My Dream palette. This is a beautiful neutral color story that I've gotten a lot of use out of. It was the first NATASHA DENONA palette that I've ever purchased, and I really do love it. This is the NATASHA DENONA Zendo palette. I purchased this off the BoxyCharm drop shop, and I haven't used it yet, but it is a beautiful palette, and I'm excited to try it. This was a fall purchase last year. This is the Ace Beauté Ambiance palette. This is a beautiful fall color story. I'm pretty sure this one's still available, and I'm excited, so excited to start using this again soon. It's a really fun palette, and I love their formula. These are two of the oldest palettes in my collection. One of them doesn't even have the lid. This is the first one I purchased, and I purchased it because I didn't have a lot of colorful palettes, and at the time I couldn't really afford to buy them, so I bought these, and at the time, you know, they did me good, but now I have better formulas in my collection that I reach for, so I don't really reach for these, but at the same time, I don't want to get rid of them. This is my Glamlight Street Taco palette. This one is so beautiful. I love the bright color story. This is a fun palette to work with, especially for a smaller palette. Here we have another Juvia's Place, which is the Bronze Rustic. This color story is so fun. This shade is so bright and vibrant on the eye. I just absolutely love these. And if you haven't tried Juvia's Place, I highly recommend. These are like $8 or $9 for these 6-pan palettes, and the pigmentation on them is very good. These are two more color pops. This is the At Foresight Raw Beauty Christie Color Pop collab. The packaging on this is so beautiful. I love the little mushrooms, the little forest, and the color story just as well. This is such a beautiful palette, and this one's no longer available. You might be able to find it on Mercari or something, but you're probably going to pay twice the price for it because people over there like to rip you off. This is Sonic Bloom by ColourPop. I think this one's still available, and it is beautiful. Also a very fun fall palette. This is Lunar Beauty. Such a beautiful packaging. I love the color story of the packaging, but this was a advent calendar for holiday last year, and the color story really was a surprise for everyone, but the color story on this is absolutely stunning, and it will be so fun for fall. That's when I got it. No, I got it for Christmas last year, but I really love this. I love Lunar Beauty's formula, and I think he did a great job on this, but I would love to see him do a palette, the color of the outside of this packaging. This is my Sigma Corta Rosa. I love this palette. I've got a lot of good use out of this, and the brushes that come in these palettes are so freaking good. I love them so much. Sigma has a great eyeshadow formula, and I can easily recommend any palette on their site. This is the oldest palette in my collection. I bought this from a long-time friend, and this is the Modern Renaissance, and you can see she's rough. This palette has got a lot of love, and I've hit pan on every shade in it. And like I said, this is the oldest palette in my collection, and because of that, I will never let it go. Plus, it reminds me of someone who used to be my friend. This is the Sigma Alice in Wonderland. This is the first palette I purchased from Sigma. I bought the collection and I love it so much. It came with like a brush set, a blush highlight duo, and this. And I've gotten so many good looks out of this and had so much fun creating with it. And this collection is still available and I highly recommend it. I really love the Sigma brushes. If you haven't tried them, you totally should. This is the Urban Decay Naked Heat. Little story about this one. I was working at a retirement center and my boss's wife always talked about how much she loved my eyeshadow. And she asked me if I'd ever been to Sephora, and I told her no, that I didn't. I hadn't even tried anything from Sephora yet. This was in 2020. And I came back to work a few days later and she snuck and bought me this palette. It was so sweet. It made me cry. And I just think the world of her. And she got me like little Too Faced minis, like that Perfect Peach Powder and one of the little lipsticks. And I just loved her so much for that. And I've used the hell out of this palette. I will never get rid of it because of that. Urban Decay, now that I have tried a lot of different brands, it's not one of my favorite formulas, but I will always love this palette because of her. This is the Subculture palette. I know that there was like a big thing that happened with this palette before I ever even found YouTube, but I bought this at Marshall's like a year ago and I like it. I know that they were supposed to have reformulated it, so maybe I got the better version of it, but I do like this palette's color story. This is a really pretty fall palette too. I could have included it in my fall video, which I will also pop up here. This is the ABH Jackie Aina palette, and I freaking love this one a lot. I've hit pan on a few shades. This is a very beautiful, fun color story, and as of yet, it is my favorite ABH palette. Jackie Aina did a great job. Next, we have a Pure Cosmetics Raw Beauty Christie palette. This is the first $50 palette I ever bought for myself. Raw Beauty Christie is one of my favorite YouTubers, and I think she did a great job on this. She actually drew all the pictures, if you don't know that. And what I love about the palette is one side of it is colorful, and as you can see, I've really got a lot of use out of this side. And then the other side is neutral, and I've also used this one quite a bit too. And I thought this was a fun palette, and as I said, I love Raw Beauty Christie. I'm pretty sure these are my last three Juvia's Place. This is the Berries by Juvia's Place. I love this palette, and I really love using it with this one, which is the Sweet Pinks. These are so bright and fun, and these wine shades are so deep and rich. I just really love this palette. These are so fun, and these are what started my love for Juvia's Place. And I also have the Zulu, and this one's fun as well. I've gotten a lot of use out of this. The pans in these are really huge, so this little thing will last you forever, but I just think this is a great palette, and I wish I would have really gotten to makeup when Juvia's Place first started, because some of their first palettes just take my breath. But I didn't even know that online makeup was even a thing, so I had no clue. This is Bailey Sarian's Estate palette. It is a collaboration. It's the Venus Fling. I have this palette because it's from Bailey Sarian, and I think I got it in an Ipsy or a BoxyCharm. This palette, though, is a freaking nightmare. I tried to use it so many times. I hate it. I hate it so bad. And to be honest, I'm kind of shocked that Bailey put her name on this, but I'll never get rid of it because I do love Bailey Sarian. But I don't recommend this palette. This is the Ace Beauté Nostalgia. And I got this in a BoxyCharm or an Ipsy, and I've loved this palette. I've used it so many times, It's such a fun color story, and I like the formula of this palette. This I got in a BoxyCharm. This is the Nomad Berlin Underground, and I've used it a few times. This is my first Nomad palette, and I literally went out on a limb when I purchased that Royal Europe palette, and I'm glad I did because they have since this changed their formula and it is so much better. But I hate this palette. The quality is just really not there. But their newer formulas are absolutely beautiful and I love them. Okay, now we are down to the last 30 palettes. These top ones are my Blend Bunny Cosmetics. This is the newest palette they released. This is the Sugar and Grunge. I love the packaging and the theming of this. I love the color story. The looks I've created with it have been so much fun. I've really enjoyed working with it. This is by far my favorite Blend Bunny Cosmetics palette. This is the first palette I purchased from them. This is the Surge. And to be honest, the whole reason I purchased it was for the neon row. It's what attracted me to it. And then the deep shades. But I don't know what it is about this palette. I don't know. These are the only neons in my collection, so I don't know if I'm working with them wrong. But these always look so patchy on me. And to be honest, I almost didn't repurchase from the brand. But I loved this palette so much that I purchased it. And I ended up really loving this. So then I seen this one was going out of stock and it was 40% off. And I've been eyeing this palette since it first came out because I love the color story of this. And I love how she put the bigger white and black shades. But I have the same issue with this palette as well. So I don't know if I need to use a different technique with it or what, because Blend Bunny I've never heard anyone say anything negative about this brand. So I feel like the odd man out, which makes me think it might be a me problem. If you have any suggestions or if you have Blend Bunny Cosmetics palettes, just if you don't mind, leave me a comment and tell me how you apply the eyeshadows in them. These are my 2020 COVID palettes that I purchased. This is the Makeup Revolution Alexis Stone palette. This is the first colorful eyeshadow palette that I had in my collection. These two together, actually, I bought them at the same time. And I've got a lot of use out of these. This is the Patricia Bright Revolution collab. And as you can see, this one I preferred more than this one. This was one that I used like in combination with other palettes, but I really enjoyed this one. And honestly, that was really before I got a good feel of different types of formulas. At the time, I thought they were great palettes, but I have not used them in such a long time, so I don't know if I would still feel that way. This is the Profusion Mean Girls collection. I like this palette for the simple fact that I really love this yellow shade. As you can see, I've hit pan on it, but more than anything, it's mostly because it's Mean Girls and I love that movie, but there's a lot of pressed glitters in there and I don't like that. This is last year's Pat McGrath Holiday palette. I was able to pick this up because I found it at TJ Maxx. It's a very beautiful palette, but I have not used it yet. But I do plan on it soon. This is, I think, the last palette I bought from Glamlight. This is the Scooby-Doo Part 2 collection. And I love this. I love the color story. I like the layout. I know some people don't because there is a lot of unused space, but I believe it's necessary for the characters to be on there. And I think this is a very fun and beautiful color story. And I do have looks on my channel using this, which I will try to remember to link it. This is the Glamlight Artistry palette. This is still for sale on the site. I've seen this at Ross and TJ Maxx. This isn't a standalone palette for me, but it's another one of those that I like to pull out when I need a certain shade, but I do really enjoy this. And even though this is so annoying to store, I love the packaging. Now we are down to my last stack, which also happens to be some of my most used and most favorite palettes in my collection. This one is a Wet n Wild palette I purchased in the fall of 2021. I think it's a very pretty palette and I like it, but this isn't one that I was talking about. This is Teresa is Lethal, and it's Teresa's second collaboration with Lethal Cosmetics. Unfortunately, I don't have the first one, but I am so happy I own this one. This is such a beautiful palette, and I love it so much. And I really do like Lethal Cosmetics, and that is why I purchased these two. I don't know the names of these palettes. They don't have them on there on the packaging, but this is the green one. I think this one is called Evergreen maybe, but this is a very me color story and I really love using this. This one's kind of newer to me. I think these were released this year, and this is the second one. I bought the bundle where you got both of them, and I really love this one as well. And next we have my babies. My Unearthly Cosmetics. This is the So Strange palette. I love this. My favorite thing in these palettes are these two shimmers right here, especially that freaking yellow one. This is the 1964 palette. These were last year's Halloween release. I love these as well. Her shimmer formula just takes me out, but I love the mattes too. This is the Heather Austin and Unearthly collaboration. This is the Resurgence palette. This is still available on the site, and I love this palette so much, but there is something in this red shade and possibly this pink one that I am allergic to. It makes my eyes water, which sucks because I really do love these. These are such pretty shades, and that's the best red in my collection, and I cannot use it. So if you have any idea what it might be in this that's not in a typical red shade, I would love if you let me know so I could start looking out for that. This is the Unearthly Lore palette. The packaging on this is so pretty, and so is the color story. I absolutely love it. I'm slowly trying to collect all of the palettes on the site. And this was part of that same Halloween collection. This is the Weirdos palette. I've seen this restock a few times on her site. It's not on there at the moment, but I think she's trying to bring it back. And the same with this one. This is a pretty fall color story, but I really love the shimmers and the mattes. The color story is so fun. I love mixing these three palettes too. And this is the Fairy Frolic, again with the packaging and the color story. This is such a fun fall palette as well. It's so beautiful, and this is new to me, but I've really used it a lot already. I also have the new Unearthly Summer Mystery Box, which I'm going to be filming after this, and I'm so excited to use that palette. These are my Cosmic Brushes palettes. This is another one of my favorite brands. These are 20 color eyeshadow palettes. They're only like $25 to $35 depending. I think this one was closer to the $35 price range, but the color story on this is beautiful. It even has a multi-chrome in here. And if you know anything about multi-chromes, they are very expensive to make. But I've gotten a lot of use out of this already, and it is my second favorite palette from this brand so far. First one is this one. This is a Serenity palette. This is one of my favorite palettes in my collection. Her mattes and shimmers are just impeccable. These darker tones, they are so rich and full of pigment, but they're still so very blendable, and I love the color story of this one. And then we have the Muse palette. I love this one as well. The color story reminds me a lot of I think it's the Makeup Just for Fun ODENS collab, and it's so beautiful. I really love the pinks and the greens, the olives, this mustard yellow. This is just a fun palette. And for the price, you really can't beat it. This came in a BoxyCharm or an Ipsy. This is the ABH Norvina collection. This is volume 1. And I like this palette. I haven't used it in a while, and because I got it years ago. I haven't used it in a while. I've had to repress a shade, but at the time I really enjoyed using it. But I'm curious to see what I would think now, because I bought the one with the blue packaging because I really love the color story of that one, and I hated it so bad that I returned it. And for me to return something is, I hate doing returns, so I really hated that palette. There was no way I was about to let my money go to waste. And then we have the Glamlite Barbie palette. This is the Dream Summer. This is one of my favorites in my collection. I absolutely love the color stories, and I love the mustard tones, and I just love this whole palette. It's very beautiful, and I think she did a great job on this. And then we have my last 4. These 2 are Glamlite as well. This is my favorite pastel palette. This is the Ice Cream Dream. I think this is the first palette I purchased from Glamlite. The packaging is so cute and fun, but the color story is beautiful. I've almost got pan on like 10 different shades on this. I've gotten so much use out of it. I love using it with other palettes, especially Glamlite palettes, because she doesn't always have a lot of lighter shades for me to be able to blend them out, which is fine, but you know what I mean. And this is my Glamlite Cake palette. I love the packaging. I remember when this came out, I wasn't able to buy it then, but I bought it this year and I love it so much, and I'm so glad that I have it. It has really unique, fun shades, and I always have a good time with it. Like I said, Glamlite's one of my favorite brands, and outside of those Scooby-Doo palettes, I really enjoyed everything that I've tried from her. I have 2 more Lunar Beauty palettes. This is the Nude Prism, and I love this. This is such a beautiful neutral palette. I got one in a BoxyCharm, but I didn't realize that I was getting it in BoxyCharm, and I purchased it. And then, like, literally a week later, my BoxyCharm came and this palette was in there. So I gave that one away. But this is the one that I purchased, and I'm very glad that I did. This would be so beautiful for bridal makeup. And this is the newest palette. This is Full Fantasy. This is Lunar Beauty and Laura Lee Los Angeles Cosmetics. It's their collaboration, and they did it for their podcast full coverage, and I love that podcast. It's so fun, and I'm not typically one to listen to podcasts. That's the only one I listen to, and I really do love it. They have such a good time over there, and I enjoy watching. This is like a neutral palette for a colorful lover, or a colorful palette for someone who loves neutrals but wants to try something different. I really love the olivey green tones, and honestly, this side of the palette is my favorite. I've really enjoyed creating looks with it. I actually have a video with this, but I haven't uploaded it yet. I've kind of been like, I got it late, so now I'm not sure if anyone really wants to see it. So I'm kind of just saving that footage for when I don't have time to film, but I need to upload something. That is it for today's video. That's all of my eyeshadow palettes. I just want to let you guys know that I will have each brand linked in the description box, and I'll also have the palettes in the order that I showed them to you in case you want to find something. And just thank you guys for watching all the way to the end. I do hope that you will subscribe and turn on your notifications so you don't miss any of my uploads, and just like this video. If you have any questions, feel free to comment them down in the comment section. And until next time, bye.